Good evening, everybody. As a preliminary matter, I am Tina Burgos, member of the Needham Human Rights Committee, and I will be chairing this meeting. Permit me to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Amelia?
Here.
Marlene?
Here.
Julie?
Here.
Belinda?
Here.
Katie?
Here.
And Tina, I am here. This open meeting of the Needham Human Rights Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020, due to the state of emergency in the Commonwealth due to the outbreak of COVID-19. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting is a webinar and will allow the public to comment. For this meeting, the Needham Human Rights Committee is convening by Zoom app as posted on the town's website, identifying how the public may join. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. Please be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. All supporting materials that have been provided members of this body are available on the town's website unless otherwise noted. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless I note otherwise. We are now turning to the first item in the agenda. Before we do so, permit me to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of our business and to ensure accurate meeting minutes. I will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, I will go down the line of members, inviting each by name to provide any comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Further, please remember to mute your phone or computer when you're not speaking, and remember to speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait until I yield the floor to you and state your name before speaking. For items with public comment, after members have spoken, I will afford public comment as follows. I will first ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once I have a list of all public commentators, I will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Finally, each vote taken in this meeting will be conducted by roll call votes. Okay, so we also have, please, Jen, hi. Can you just give me a here? Thank you. Cynthia.
Present.
Bud.
Present.
Carrie.
Here.
Okay, I think that is everyone. Hey, great, nice to see you guys. I have no minutes because I cannot get myself together to get them compiled. So we cannot approve the minutes of August 19th because I just didn't do it. So sorry. I'll have them ready for you guys by the next meeting. Okay. Do we have any public participation tonight, Katie?
We have some attendees, so if anyone wants to speak, if you could raise your hand and I can move you over. Otherwise, we will assume you just want to listen. No hand. Yep, hold on one second. I'm gonna move over Renaz.
Oh, yay.
Here we go.
Hi, Renaz.
Hi, I just want to say hello to everyone. Sorry, I don't want to interrupt. I want to say hello to everyone. And I am looking forward to attend this meeting, taking notes, and maybe assist Tina with the minutes and stuff. I have more time.
Thank you.
You're
Nice to
welcome.
see you. I'm glad, I thought you had a work thing tonight. No,
I made it home.
love it.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me. Bye.
Anybody else?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay, great. So at the last meeting, Anna Gerald Kerr was going to speak about the diversity and discussion book club. Jen, I know there was a time, it was very time sensitive, and I apologize. We had to cancel that meeting at the last minute. Do you have any updates, or is there anything that we need to know, or anything you guys, the club needs from us at this time?
I actually am not sure. Anna, I haven't seen anything. That the last I heard from her, she was going to send out like a doodle poll or something to figure out a meeting date. So to my knowledge, I haven't heard that they have met. I don't know if anybody from NDI has heard anything differently, but I haven't heard anything about them meeting, which would mean that they haven't picked the books or scheduled them out yet so far. But I do know they were originally, when she reached out a couple of months ago, looking to kind of restructure it because there were a lot of NDI members on it, and they were trying to kind of spread the areas of input from different places. And so at that time I said, you know, if anybody else on our committee wants to be a part of this, I'm happy to step aside. I don't need to do it again, but if nobody else wants to do it, then I'm happy to stay on and keep doing it. So
Okay,
at this point, if anybody would like to have a say in kind of picking the books for the year or scheduling it out, I think that what the expectation was that people who were on the planning committee would attend at least most of the book discussions and would agree to lead one of the discussions.
is it monthly? Does the club meet monthly?
It's kind of, sometimes it has, but sometimes it hasn't. I mean, it's now almost November. So, I mean, I can't imagine we're doing anything before January at this point. So I don't know if maybe we'll be able to pump out, you know, 4 or 5 books before the summer, which, as I'm saying that sentence, sounds bananas to be planning right now, but maybe it's possible to do that.
Okay,
It's probably, honestly, I can't remember. I think we were shooting for monthly, and I think it was monthly for a good strong stretch, but then when everything went virtual, I think the schedule got kind of upended.
Monthly feels like a lot.
I don't think it was monthly, Jen. I think it was like every other month. So anyway,
I think there was definitely a year there where I don't know. I'm picturing the flyer in my head. You could totally be right. Yeah, it's not a very heavy lift, and it is a really those. I've always really enjoyed the conversations. I know that there's a lot of people on the Zoom right now who have attended them in the past. I've always found them to be really interesting, and there's like a core group of people who probably show up to more than one. But I was often surprised that each one of them did really bring in some different people to the, you know, who may have been particularly interested in that book that we read that month. So it's interesting.
Jen, they did quite a bit of getting the authors of the books to come to the discussion, which really brought in a lot of people.
okay, that's great. Well, if anybody hears of any updates, would you please just circulate so that we can stay in the loop? And if I speak to Anna, I'll also try to get some information from her. I haven't talked to her in a while either.
I haven't either. I can completely reach back out to her. It totally dropped off my radar, but if there's anybody that wants to be included in that planning, please let me know, because I'll make sure that you get invited to the meeting when it kind of happens.
Okay, great. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or any other? No, great. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the discrimination complaint process, which I know has been a slog for everybody over the past few months. we meaning the subcommittee and Bud met a couple of weeks ago. I think I can't keep track of anything these days. So we just want to go over, sort of recap what we've been talking about. And I think Katie and I came up with a somewhat workable solution to moving forward with the process that helps to satisfy open meeting law. But Katie, do you mind just giving a quick town council recap and sort of where we left off with Chris? And then I can talk about the Resilience Network.
Sure. So I think the sticking point the last time the subcommittee had come to this full group was that up under the open meeting law, anytime you create a subcommittee to do the work of the larger committee, that subcommittee is subject to the open meeting law. So public meetings, 48-hour postings. And so that really was, I think, the tension point. So Tina, do you want me to talk about the resolution or do you want me to hand it off to you? And
yeah, if you want to. So I put up I reworked the slide,
yeah,
which Katie's going to put up right now. It's just one slide out of the deck.
this one.
Yeah, so thank you. Where you see the two big yellow blocks, right? That was sort of our sticking point last time. There was a lot of comment and concern about the fact that because more than one member from HRC would need to, multiple members would need to meet and collaborate to help with any sort of complaint that came through to make sure that we were providing the best possible service we could for anybody that asked for assistance in resolving these issues. That it was going to be an issue with open meeting law, as Katie said. And it was sort of unacceptable, I think, to all of us that just one person from HRC would basically be seeing this process through from beginning to end without any sort of help, assistance, support. So I've been meeting with Nicole Argo and Beth Pinels because they're trying to bring in a bunch of different groups to work with the Resilience Network. They're trying to figure out who's doing what so that they're not duplicating efforts. Just having check-ins with everybody. And one of the things that they had mentioned to me during our last discussion was, tell us about this discrimination complaint process. What does that look like for you guys? How do you think that is going to, either crossover with what the Resilience Network is doing or isn't? And after sort of working it through with them, I asked them maybe instead of more than one member of the HRC, so myself and one of you or two of you, whatever the case may be, instead of members within the HRC collaborating with each other to work through a complaint, we could join efforts with the Resilience Network so that this person from HRC was not sort of running the show solo, so to speak. This does not mean that the Resilience Network would own this process. They do not want to own this process. They do not have the time or the funds to own this process. It strictly means that they would basically play as an advisory role to HRC or the one member of HRC that happens to be the point person at the time to help resolve whatever issue or complaint that comes across through our committee. So I just wanted to sort of see how everybody was feeling about that, because if we can sort of work through this general process here, then we can take it to the select board and hopefully get the green light. I know it's not ideally what we had envisioned, but I feel like it is a really good compromise so that not only, it's not just one person that has to do the work, and B, we're collaborating with people who are, it's complementary, right? We're working with people who understand the issues. The Resilience Network is going to be made up of legal experts, mediators, people who have dealt with housing issues, people who are well-versed in issues of education. So I feel like it's a really good way to complement the work that we're doing. And at the same time, you know, the one person from HRC, the 1 point person, is not feeling like he, she, or they are alone in this process. Am I missing anything there, Katie?
Can I just
No.
add one thing quickly? That we talked about, that we clarified in our subcommittee meeting, was you don't have to go to the Resilience Network. Every complaint, if it's cut and dry to the person who's working on the complaint, then they can just go through the channels as they would. But
Or you might say,
feel like we need more
exactly, or
support.
you may say, you know what, this is really something I need to, this is more of, this is a legal, I need to talk to the chief. I need to get the police involved. I need to get, you know, this is clearly an issue with housing. This is clearly an issue with the school committee. Yeah, it's not, you do not have to go to, thank you, Julie. You don't have to go to the group, the subcommittee that Beth and Nicole want to put together to assist with the process. You don't have to go to them for assistance, but it just provides us with that support that we were trying to figure out, how are we going to do this without having to go to open meeting law because more than one of us is involved with this process. Marlene.
I mean, I was at the subcommittee and meeting, and I think this is probably the best we can do. My concern about taking this to the select board is that the Resilience Network is not in place yet. So are they going to question that? Or maybe that's a Katie question. You know, do we have to wait until the Resilience Network is in place for us to get this approved through the select board?
I don't think so, only because your process is, you know, I don't think the Resilience Network would necessarily be like written into a policy or into a process. It's just an understanding that you all have that as a resource. So if you're comfortable moving forward before the Resilience Network is set up, and even though the network's not set up, you know, the people are there. The resources that Tina's referencing, they're there. So I don't think you have to wait.
Okay, I just, you know, I didn't know how it would play with the select board since it's in process. So, and maybe Tina, you could clarify it somehow with Julie's point about that this is a potential resource. It's not. It looks like it's mandatory on that sheet, but it's not. I don't know what wording you want to use, but thanks.
Cynthia.
Hey, so if I understood correctly, one of the options is for, let's say I'm working with a situation, a complaint, that I can consult with somebody from the police department or housing, anybody who is not a member of the Human Rights Committee. I can consult with them without it bringing out the open meeting law. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. The next question, and this might be a Katie question, when I was going through the volumes of the open meeting law and other things to our annual training, which I have no idea how people ever remember those things, but it does alert you to the questions to look at. I thought I ran across something that said, if you're a member of a town committee and you have a meeting with less than a quorum of that group, or have a conversation or communications, that it does not trigger the open meeting law. I thought I remembered seeing that, but I didn't kind of capture it and have the page number and all, but I remember hearing that was the interpretation by the Arlington group, and seeing it in print. And this training made me again wonder, I don't want to take a lot of time around it, but I did see that somewhere.
Yes, and thank you for doing your annual training. You are correct, and you did read that. So less than a quorum doesn't trigger open meeting law of a public body. The second part to that, though, is a public body is interpreted to be both a full appointed or elected town committee, and a subcommittee is also considered a public body subject to open meeting law. So does that make sense?
Well,
So,
if I'm one person with one other person, that's not a subcommittee.
so I think it's around the formality of it. So Cynthia, if you wanted to call Tina tomorrow and talk all day about HRC,
No,
you actually could, because it's just two people and you're just chatting and it hasn't reached a quorum. But if the two of you are designated by this committee to delegate duties of the full HRC down to the two of you to do regularly, then you become also a public body, just the two of you.
So if I'm the one that's in charge of a particular investigation, then I could talk with Tina. And then the next time I had a case, I could talk with Amelia, something, so that I could do that as long as it wasn't an ongoing, that's the person who who was appointed to do it.
The policy should be that one HRC member is appointed the investigator of it. If you need to call someone, you can call
Because
someone.
I think that I think that could satisfy for at least some of what I was concerned about. If we could do that, so that one time it might be talking with Marlene and another time it might be talking with Amelia, or you might be talking with 4 or 5 different people around a particular case. So he's saying that might be okay.
The problem is though, correct me if I'm wrong, Katie, is when we get into the wording of because we have to write up what this looks like, right? So I think Katie's point is when we stipulate who is in charge of the investigation, who is doing the investigating, whatever word terminology we want to come up with, we have to say it's one person.
Right. And I'm saying that what my objection to having it only be one person is it seemed like that was too much responsibility.
Right.
But if you're allowed to consult with people without it being the same person every time, then you take the responsibility, but you can consult with the police department, or you can consult with somebody in the resilience network, or you can consult with, that still, I understand about having the appointed whoever is the person. But if you're allowed to do that without writing everything out that you're saying and putting it in a public record, that I think would be would meet the kind of concern that I had. I don't know whether that would for other people.
Does that trigger?
I think that's what we're proposing here. So, there's one HRC member investigating, and you can call people to be resources to you. It can be town staff, it can be Resilience Network. Yeah.
Marlene.
So maybe we should clarify that and not just list the Resilience Network.
But if we say another member of HRC, then you're triggering open meeting law.
Well,
because that becomes a subcommittee.
Well, we can just say,
I don't want to get lost in the semantics, because I think that in practice, this is, what's proposed does give you resources to call who you'd like.
Right. And I mean, that's what I would say, rather than just pointing out the Resilience Network. And we're not, maybe we have to call somebody at the schools, maybe we have to call the police or whatever. But I think that it should say that the point person has the ability to consult with other appropriate people or something like that.
Outside resources.
External resources.
Yeah, outside resources, and not necessarily, just in the Resilience Network.
It does still feel like then the Human Rights Committee isn't responding to something. to me, that's what it doesn't feel like the committee's responding to anything. You're saying it can be one person and they can consult outside. It just doesn't, at what point is the rest of the committee brought in? Only at the monthly meeting? Can we discuss
So-
it? Like,
Do you want to
So,
pull the slide back up?
yeah,
Because I think it's, you guys are a lot more involved in. the
Yeah, it's at the very beginning, Carrie. After
we
the,
don't move forward.
It's-
Right, so we don't move, here, it says present the case collectively to the committee. We don't move forward with it until we discuss as a body whether or not it's something that is appropriate for us to take on. And then it goes through, the point person handles the case. And then at the very end, HRC is still responsible for closing the case, reporting back to the committee what happened, with, whether it was one person that handled the case or one person and external resources handled the case. There's a report back to the rest of the committee. We have to file a report and then log the statistical data. And then from there, if we feel like there are other things that we need to do going forward, does this require, does this trigger, we need more training on, the community needs more training on racial equity, or we really should try to change that particular policy in the schools. I mean, there are a whole host of things that could happen beyond just dealing with the complaint.
I'm kind of struck by this, the fear of somebody coming to us with very sensitive information, and if we are sharing that information outside of our circle, I mean, I guess we don't ever have control over who gets it or what happens, but it feels like if you're a member of the HRC, I don't know, I guess I'm worried about like information being out there about people and not being able to kind of rein in who has that information in a way that could respect people's privacy.
But
Wouldn't some of that have to do with our training as to what we do in intake, and as we're talking to other people, as opposed to maybe naming names, saying this is a situation that was brought to us, how would you recommend, rather than, if we're concerned about the privacy issue, I'm not sure that we need to name names. I think we're talking about the incident, what happened, and how it should be addressed, if we don't want names to get out.
I don't think we would have, so let's say we take Jen, let's say you take a complaint. When you present an initial complaint to the committee to see whether or not we want to move forward with it, all you would do is you would not give us any personal information. So I feel like the privacy would have to start from the get-go, right? Marlene?
unless the person said it would be okay to use their name, because it's very possible that the person might be known to the police. And I think that would be very helpful to us.
The person meaning the complaint or the
Plain,
perpetrator?
either could be known. You know, the police know a lot of people and a lot of stuff that's going on in the community, and I think it's could be very helpful. I just go back to that one that we had before, and I remember John knew the guy, and it was really helpful to talk to John about it and get his perspective on it.
Well, there's also, though, there are times when people make a decision not to go to the police with something.
Right.
And I don't know. This is giving me agita. I should probably just, I know you guys have been studying this for a long time, so I trust your judgment. I keep going back to like kind of what it is that we're trying to accomplish with this. and thinking about, okay, maybe this does. Well, I guess let me stop there. Is our goal was to give people a place to be able to bring their concerns. And then I suppose that does fulfill that. I guess I'm just worried about what the outcome is, what we're really telling people we can do for them. I'm a little bit afraid of like setting up a system that looks like it's going to do something, and that people are going to feel like it's not really doing anything. Do you know what I mean? Like setting up something that doesn't actually
Mhm.
move the ball.
But
Well, Jennifer, Jen, if it gets to legal issues, we're not a body that's going to be involved in that. We're listening to the complaint and we're trying to resolve the complaint. And some of it, may just be, a person wants to talk to us about something that's happened. But if it's something that needs to go to the police department or needs to go to an outside area, I think we're kind of the pass-through body where at least people can come with an issue and we can help them with it.
Katie?
One of the things that stuck with me most from when Drake presented from Arlington is that initial conversation with whoever gets the first call from the person to an HRC member, and really laying out clear expectations then. Both that this process is not confidential and cannot be guaranteed, even if people don't use names in public meetings or share names. Any documentation is a public record. So I think it's a matter of being really, really clear up front that this is not a guarantee of confidentiality. But if that initial intake is a phone call, that can be absolutely confidential so that that person has a choice whether they want to move forward or not. And the second piece that Drake had said also was asking in that very initial conversation what the person wanted to get out of it, like what the resolution was or what they were hoping for. So if I wonder if the initial HRC member that does the intake could really get a feeling right then if it was something that the process could achieve for them or not. I don't know if that's helpful.
Jen, does that help assuage anything? I understand what you're saying. So I
think it does, because I think you're right. I guess somebody makes a decision, and if if we come up with some kind of elevator pitch that explains what it is, what we can do clearly, what they want is justice. That is what every single person coming is going to want to do, and what that that looks different for everybody, I guess. And so it's not a very black and white thing to be able to say like we're going to be able to do something very specific. I'm trying to think of what the specific thing is, like how you would explain it to somebody, like, well, we're going to help try to mediate something between you and the person that wronged you, or like, what are we, like, we don't have the authority to punish somebody. We're not going to be pressing charges against them. There's no, legally binding finding that like entitles them to money. So I guess like what are we telling people? I guess that's maybe my question, is what would we say to somebody as to what we can do for them? Why would it be worth it for them to come and go through this process?
I think part of it at least is pointing people in the right direction from what we've talked about. Like maybe they do need a professional mediator, we can send them that way. Maybe they do need the police, we can send them that way if they so choose, obviously, to pursue those things. But we're saying we can listen to you and then offer up the next step, which we personally probably can't perform, but at least could get them one step maybe closer to the resolution they're seeking.
Marlene.
I think we can do more than that. I think depending upon how they feel that they've been discriminated against, we can do a deep dive into what was going on and try to maybe tease out some of the issues that it might have been a misunderstanding. There could possibly be some restorative justice that could be put into place. So I think until we get the cases, I think it's hard to sort of speculate. But I think there is a lot more that we can do.
Amelia.
I wonder if we could take a case that we actually were involved in and run it through right now. And I'm thinking of the High Rock, the group of parents who hired a lawyer. And Jen, you were critical at the beginning. I think they reached out to you. You were chair then. And it seemed like that whole process started with their contact with you. Do you want to sort of walk us through that? Because I had attended some of the meetings that resulted after that first meeting with them. I mean, does that make sense, or is that too complicated a case?
I think talking about it in tangible terms is really interesting. And also interesting because I guess, that case in particular had to do with the school. So I don't, that's probably considered a town employee, which maybe sounds like maybe is a different path. So I don't know, Katie, would that be something that would be put on the?
I don't know the details of what you guys are talking about.
Oh, okay, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah.
So what the parents had come to the HRC with was a complaint that the middle school, the 6th grade middle school in particular, was grouping kids into clusters. They call them, they divide up the larger class into clusters, and that they were using race as one of the factors to make those decisions about which clusters kids are going to be in. And so the effect of that, the reasoning behind it, I think, was genuinely out of a place of trying to provide support to the students of color so that they wouldn't be in the situation where they were the only student of color in the classroom. The impact was that all of the kids of color were in one cluster, which, is against the law, but also just not great for a lot of reasons. And so they had brought the concern to HRC, and my recollection is that we met with Dr. Goodkamps. I think first we met with the parents, with a bunch of the parents alone, and kind of heard out what they had been trying, what they had already communicated to the school, and how that went, and kind of like what kind of support that they were looking for then. And then we met with Dr. Goodkamps with some of those parents again, and talked. It kind of helps, I don't know, at least set the room up for them to be able to have a conversation. Cynthia, do you remember something else?
Yes. When they came to us, they said they had already met with the superintendent, and he was not giving them very much attention or response of what they wanted. And then it was only when they went to a lawyer who deals with civil rights situations that he started to respond. But they were concerned, they wanted help from us to think through how to proceed, because it had been laid out and it was only known within, us. It wasn't publicly known at that point. And they said that the parents of Asian students had found out earlier and had brought it up, and it had been ended. And what they were most irate about is that it was done without them knowing about it. And that if they'd known about it, they could have entered into the process of deciding whether this was, so there's some research that goes one way or another, so that they were consulting us, and we got into the place of, we're an advisory committee to the town. We're not supposed to, that it would not be advisable for us to be closely allied with a group that's being critical of the school system. And since we were And I think you did a really good job of helping to guide us along with that, that we were hearing them and that we were on the side of trying to see the situation resolved in such a way that the rights of the students and the parents would be respected. And I think then you or others were able to talk with the superintendent, sort of be helping to make the process move forward. So give it back to you because you were in that part. But I remember they had already talked with him, but we then had to look at ourselves as to what our role would be.
Yeah, that was a really good point, Cynthia. And I'm trying to remember what the dots were between us meeting with Dr. Kudkast and the equity audit coming about. I seem to remember
That's one of the things they asked for.
meetings.
Until they had an attorney, that's when it happened.
Yeah.
That sparked what happened when they spoke with a civil rights. You're right, Cynthia. I vividly remember that piece.
Yeah, but it was one of the things that they asked for, is to have an independent audit. I don't know that they used the word equity audit, they might have, but the idea of somebody coming from outside the school system who would look at things, the big picture, not just the,
I
that-
feel like could we go to a school committee meeting and maybe offer some comments about kind of asking for that audit?
Yes. We did at Broadmeadow.
so that we allied with what they were asking for because we saw it as a broader human rights issue for the school system that, I mean, just as we've had other people come from the school with complaints about how a teacher handled something. And when we put it all together, that it was a larger issue that the school system needed to respond to, which is part of what we've been asked by the town to name things that we see, not in order to ally ourselves with people against the town, but to name things that we all want to, in the name of human rights, see improved. And Carrie, you were involved with that, as I remember.
One of the moms is a friend of mine.
So with that example, in my mind, that would come to the HRC and flow through this process that's proposed. I think the employment issue would be if you got a call, Jen, saying this individual teacher discriminated against my child because of protected status, and that is what would be recommended to be referred as a HR matter to the, in that case, the superintendent. But if it's a policy systems issue, I think it sounds like you guys actually processed it in a way that what's now written on paper mirrors somewhat.
I thought you were gonna say like we broke absolutely all the rules, I think, now that I'm looking back at it.
No, I think you.
I'm afraid to be admitting it.
I think you
No, but the
wrote the
process
flow
wasn't in
chart.
place then. We were working with what we didn't have that
Probably
process.
the open meeting laws have been around for,
You guys could have written a flow chart and it would have saved the
A lot longer
subcommittee
than
a
that.
lot of pain.
but we did talk about it openly in meetings. I mean, I think that's part of the difference is that we were not, I think we treated it like any other order of business. So I don't know.
We had the meeting with some of the representative parents in the same room where later we then met as a committee, if I remember right. Maybe there was a couple times that we met with them so that it was very, very much connected.
And the statute of limitations may have run.
I can't say anything else.
Oh, the complaint against a particular teacher, well, we had the parents from one of the elementary schools. And I don't think that they were so much focusing on the teacher because I think they felt the teacher did what she could, but it wasn't enough. and that they went to the principal and the principal didn't do enough. So it was it wasn't like somebody did something terrible to a kid. It's more like it's in the air that you're breathing kind of thing. It was happening there. And then we were hearing that from some other parents too, which that was before we had the group of parents come, so that we were already, if you're listening to individual complaints, you may be hearing beyond that.
I also, though, just in thinking about this, I would have been terrified to keep moving that along the path if it was just me making those decisions, to call Dr. Gukans and demand this meeting. Like, I think that the effectiveness of the action came from the fact that we had several of us in the room hearing what was going on and thinking about, what strategy might help.
So that's definitely something we need to think about. I mean, I think in that case, it sounds like it was more of a public. I'm not familiar with this either. So
It was to the extent that we were not the only people that knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think, again, we're, sort of this case by case basis, we figure out. I think every case is going to be different in how we approach, handle, work to resolve.
I totally hear that. I also think that if there's not something concrete that we can lean on, that you're going to have somebody who's going to come and say, I brought my complaint to the Human Rights Committee and they didn't do anything to help me. And I know that they helped my neighbor do X, Y, and Z. And it could be completely a wholly different story, wholly different issue. But that we want to have the safety net of something to fall back on, and that will allow some transparency, just to see that I don't know, that everybody's being evaluated kind of with the same set of criteria as to like what moves it through, because I think that's where people start getting, particularly, I mean, people come and make complaints that are well, everybody's perception is different, right? And their ability to perceive reality can be different too. So that can be a challenge.
Marlene.
That's why I think it's important that that we let the complainant know that as a committee, we will decide if this is in our jurisdiction. Is this just a neighbor who's mad at a neighbor, or really is this person violating their rights? It's two different things. The dog barks all night and they're going to come and complain to us. Well, sort of, what's the law about noise? That would be the only thing.
Barking at me, Marlene. She only makes it bark at me. And
it's different if somebody comes and spray paints something on your house that is, they spray paint a swastika or something. That's something that we could deal with, because we bring it to the committee and we say that's a violation. So,
Amelia?
Just as an aside, I keep thinking of the important role that the Human Rights Committee played in this case that we just discussed. I was at that second meeting, and Jen, I believe you organized that meeting. It was between the parents and the school administration. And I think there were two of us from the Human Rights Committee. It was a very, very tense meeting, very difficult meeting, but I felt our presence there had a positive effect, maybe a calming effect, help people be a little bit more objective. I mean, the feelings were very raw and but I felt the meeting went well. and it helped, I think, the case move forward. It's still moving forward, but I felt that the Human Rights Committee played an important role by being part of that.
Cynthia.
Hey, I want to come back to what Carrie questioned a while ago. It's about the role of the Human Rights Committee. And we have named particular things in the flow chart about deciding if it's a human rights violation and the final disposition thing. But what I'm hearing right now is the power of this group working together. And how can we have that? How can we rely on that? Am I going to, if I have a case, am I going to just go to the people I know who are in the resilience network and say, oh, phew, I can have conversations with them and not worry about whether I'm violating things, but to go to the people who we work with, who we've been with for a number of years, who we've had this common history with, who we've learned about things from, those are the people I want to be able to consult. And it wasn't clear to me when you said that we could go to external resources or other members of the committee. If you talk a little bit with one person, a little bit with another, whether that's makes them into a subcommittee. I think it's important to find a way within the regulations that we can be a resource to each other.
That would only be, as far as I can tell, if we have a public meeting, an open meeting.
What if you had a subcommittee that was a number that was less than a quorum? And then on that subcommittee, a number that was less than a quorum of that subcommittee that could meet to be, so if, so let's say that the subcommittee, the number of members that are going to take care of investigations is 5. And that of those 5 people, the investigations get assigned to 2 of those 5 people. And so at least there's 2 people who are able to collaborate on it.
That's what Katie was talking about, the designated bodies. Even though it's less than a quorum, if they're designated in that role, then they are subject to, that makes them a public body. Is that correct?
Yes, but to Cynthia's point, I hear everyone wants to be supported, and I guess what I'm trying to say is, the policy, it's recommended to not trigger open meeting law, to have it be one person as a point person, but that person can call people ad hoc for advice or guidance.
Including other people on the Human Rights Committee or only people who aren't on it? That's what I'm not clear about. An ad hoc advice.
I think if it's not very formalized, I think you could call other HRC members, but it should be very limited and not, in a formalized subcommittee. But if Marlene has worked on a particular issue before in the past, and on this issue, you're going to call Marlene, call Marlene.
Have we looked at our old policy? Because we used to have this before any of this group was on the Human Rights Committee. I know we have something historical. It'd be interesting to see how that's stated. I don't know who has those. You have that, Amelia? Or Jen, do you have it when you became chair? Do you still have all those old files?
I might have them. I think I sent them out to everyone several times, so I must have, I still have them somewhere.
Okay, I just was.
I could check.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that would be helpful to look at that, because open meeting law has been around forever, right?
So how does Arlington get around it?
They don't look at it as an official subcommittee.
Their interpretation is different.
Needham's interpretation is different. That's what it is.
Because I mean, it seems kind of mind-boggling to me that we're like, the spirit of that law shouldn't be, I don't know, like the purpose of this is to have a group of townspeople who are committed to human rights and educated in that to handle these cases. It seems counterintuitive to me that in order for them to execute that mission, they have to, include other people primarily to do that work. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. It's just the way our town council is interpreting the law. That's the sticking point.
I'm not going to be a defender of the open meeting law because I will just say it is a frustration of many committees across many charges across every town. And when the legislature landed on balancing, full transparency and other considerations, they really landed on transparency, and it is frustrating and a challenge, but it's there for its purpose. I guess I just want to convey that I really feel like if the path that you've created, that you all would be supported and you would be helping people and you would be creating a landing spot for people to be heard that isn't formalized right now. So I know it's not perfect, but I think it would be a shame if it was lost, because I think there's a lot of people on this call and elsewise, who could support anyone that was shepherding a case through this process that you could trust and feel comfortable talking to.
So where do you guys want, what do you want to do from here? There's new information, we have new sort of feelings and thoughts about the process. As Katie said, it's not perfect, but I feel like, if there really are some strong reservations, and we need to continue to either work through it or scrap it.
I think we felt at the subcommittee level that this was the best we were going to be able to do. And if we wanted to be able to hear complaints, we were going to have to move in this direction. I think it is an important part for this committee to have this role. And then we can try it out, see how it works. We can always go back to the drawing board, if we're finding that it's too restrictive.
Bud?
I agree with Marlene. We can always tweak it, but we've been talking about this for quite a while, and I think it's time to take action and go to the next step.
Does anybody else have any thoughts or comments on it? Cynthia?
I think I would kind of be in the same direction as Marlene and Bud, that it would be that I could approve going forward with the structure, knowing that we will be able to get whoever is the person handling a complaint would be able to get support from town agencies and from people in other committees, non-town committees like the Resilience Network, while indicating the reservation or wish for there to be a way to have a more complete working with other members of the Human Rights Committee. And as somebody had said, that we need to make a commitment at least a year or more to try it, to see how this works. But I would be willing to go along with that.
Does anybody else have yeah, Bud?
One other thing that I think needs to be brought up, because all of us are probably a little gun shy as to, our ability to do this. I think training is going to be an important part once we, put this process in place.
Yeah, Marianne Cooley has been pretty vocal about that with me, and Beth Pinels has some resources. So I think next step is we just vote to move forward with what we've talked about, this general scope, right? Of external resources, pulling people in with the process, clearing, making sure that we go discuss the case first with the committee. If we decide to move forward with it, the 1 point person relies on resources for consultation if necessary to help with the resolution. The case is closed. That point person reports back to HRC and logs statistical data. And if there's any follow-up beyond that, then the committee discusses that further. So that sort of general process, I think maybe we vote on that tonight. If we decide to move forward with that, we can at least bring this to that select board. Once we get their feedback, and then we need to drill down and just like a lot of the logistical details. We need to finalize the form. We need to figure out, what kind of training is involved. How long does that, what's the term for the point person? Is somebody assigned for 2 months? Is it, we rotate out every month? We need to figure out all of those things. But I just want to make sure that we're on solid ground before we take that vote. Does that sound reasonable to everybody? Yeah, Bud.
I move that we move forward with, the process and presenting it to the select board.
Do we have a second on Amelia?
I second.
Okay, let's take a vote. Amelia,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Marlene,
Yes.
Jen.
I mean this with all due respect to everybody that worked really hard on this, but I have to say no at this point.
Cynthia,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Bud.
Yes.
I'm a yes. Okay, so I'm going to rework that slide according to what we've talked about. Send it out to you guys just to make sure I didn't miss anything for, I want to make sure it's buttoned up before we meet with the select board. Katie, when would that be happening? What's the earliest that could happen?
Yeah, so my recommendation is to see if we could schedule a chairs meeting for the subcommittee of this group to meet with Matt and Marianne. And then we're holding time on the November 23rd select board agenda for the full group presentation to the select board. If people can do that.
What did you say the date was, Katie?
November 23rd. And they're meeting hybrid, so you could be in Powers Hall or on Zoom.
Bud, did you have another comment?
Yeah, Jen, I really respect your opinion and your thought process. And one of the things that I think is going to be important moving forward is, if the select board approves this, I really look forward to your input and thoughts and recommendations as to how we move forward to encompass the things that you're concerned about.
I guess I want to just clarify, you guys have done an amazing amount of work, and I have such incredible respect for all of you and all of the effort that you've put into this for many, many years, many of you. I feel like, I know it's not up to me, but I feel like that the reading of the way that they're interpreting the open meeting laws is really cutting us off at the knees. And I just, I appreciate the fact, though, that I think that the idea that this is a landing place for people that don't have one right now is tremendously important. I'm just kind of frustrated that that's where it goes, but I hope it's a good place to grow from.
I actually feel a lot of your exact concerns, but I also feel like, as others have said, like, I do feel like this is a place to start and hopefully we can tweak it and make it work better. So I'm willing to give it a try. That's, I guess, where I am.
But
And Jen, so also, so you know, the subcommittee went through some of the things you're going through too. I mean, the initial reaction, and Marlene's laughing, is we were frustrated and not happy, but as we talked it through, we felt this was really the only place to go at this point and give it a try. And Marlene, I hope I'm not speaking for you, but I think we really, had some
Yeah, I mean,
concerns.
it's not ideal. It's not what we wanted, but it's something. So if we can get something, it's better than nothing. That's the way I feel about it.
Amelia,
And I would also like to thank the subcommittee for the incredible work that you have done and have been doing for this is the second year that you've been working on this, and the summer. Thank you.
Belinda.
I think it's a great place for people to go. Victims can be overwhelmed not knowing where to go. So this is a great place to start, and definitely they wouldn't know their options. I kind of equate this to like a domestic violence victim where they're overwhelmed with what's going on. They don't know who to turn to or where to go, and they can just feel defeated even before they come forward. So by reaching out to the committee and just knowing the options, even without training per se, you're someone for them. And I think that speaks volumes to them. And it may not be what you want right now, but I think it's a tremendous starting point. And I think it's a great thing to have.
Thank you. Okay, good. I'm feeling good about this. I'm moving forward. The next item on the agenda is, Cynthia, do you want to give us a report on Indigenous Peoples Day? Again, that was something that we were to discuss during the last meeting and get involved with, but the meeting was canceled. So how did things go?
Okay, I can give you a fairly brief report. And some of this I would have given in September, but one of the really positive things is we heard from the two students who have been the initiators and really leading the process. Fernanda Pinto, who's a senior now at the Needham High, and Nick Tukin, who is now a freshman. But Superintendent Dan Gudikants invited them to speak in September at the opening meeting for all of the faculty. And they talked about their leadings to work on having Indigenous Peoples Day and all of the concerns around that. And they ended with encouraging the teachers to realize how important it was to incorporate all the understanding and study of Indigenous people and Indigenous Peoples Day into the curriculum. So the report that would have happened for if we had met later in September is the Indigenous Peoples Day group, when they met, thought that it would be important for Needham to have something to observe Indigenous Peoples Day on October 11th. And as we started to plan it, we realized we really did not have enough time to do a thorough looking into what kind of programs and how you would connect with Indigenous communities to produce that. So we decided instead to encourage people to attend observances in other communities, and specifically, we encourage people to attend a very large Indigenous peoples celebration in Newton. And a number of us, including Amelia, went to that, and we will be reporting back to the group what we learned from that as we think about having one for Needham in another year.
That's great.
So that's it.
Thank you. Amelia, can you give us please an update on the summit?
We had a meeting last night and we're actually at the stage of fine tuning, made a lot of progress and a lot of intensive meetings. I'll give you a very quick overview of some of the highlights. Gary Bailey will be the keynote speaker. He's been the moderator or the leader in the Voices in Unity series, if any of you have attended those meetings. He's a professor at Simmons School of Social Work and School of Nursing. Incredible speaker. Denise Garlick will speak. We'll have a few minutes to talk, and then there will be a panel. And on the panel, oh, by the way, and the panel will share personal stories and visions for unity in Needham. And the panel will include Marcus Nelson, Maciel Galando, she's from Equal Justice Needham, Fernanda Pinto, the person that Cynthia just, she's a Needham High School student, and Reverend Katie Scudera from First Parish Needham. Another segment of the summit will be a fireside chat. And this will be an interview, and I think Raman Abishamian will be doing the interviewing, and individuals connected to Needham and deeply care about it will share their views on the importance of diversity and how to encourage and achieve it, addressing issues, problems of equity and inclusion. People on the fireside chat that will be interviewed will be our chief, John Schlittler, Dr. Otanin Faimi. Am I pronouncing it correctly, Jen? Faimi?
Miami is his last name.
From Nuwari, and a very famous person, Tina, will be on that committee on the fireside chat, and Nicole Argo, who's from the Resilience Network. And let's see, there's one more I have to do, the breakout sessions. Let me see if I can get to that. Let's give me a second.
Amelia, will there be a real fire? That is my burning question for you.
Will there be
Fireside chat, a real fire?
Your burning question? No pun intended.
Well, we'll keep it civil. Breakout sessions. The first is reimagining public safety in Needham. Elementary racial literacy in Needham Public Schools. The third breakout session, getting involved in civic engagement and with the League of Women Voters. Another, housing in Needham, family story time, and restorative justice. So those are the highlights of the summit. And that will be on, what is it, November
14th.
14th.
I just
Marlene.
have a question. I know I signed up for it, but there was no opportunity to pick your breakout groups. Is that on that day that you pick them?
I don't remember us discussing that. I could get back to you and let you know.
I was kind of surprised, so I didn't know.
I don't remember what they did, and I don't remember what they did last year, but I don't remember having that conversation. We've been so focused on getting the speaker.
Yeah, I remember last year registering and picking my breakout group, so that's why that didn't happen. So I was just curious. I don't want to take up any more of our time.
Did
So
you register on Eventbrite? Is that
Eventbrite?
Yeah,
Yeah.
same thing with me. I am registered as well. I did not get a chance. There was no option to choose the breakout.
I'll check.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody have any questions about it? I think it's going to be really great. Really, really great. There's a group that's been meeting called Community Conversations on Race. Jen, do you want to give us just a summary about that and where we're headed?
I think probably everybody's pretty sick of hearing me talk tonight, but I'll say briefly, we are still trying to figure out how to do this. I think that we've got consensus that the first conversation is going to be about policing and public safety. And I don't know that we have total consensus on much else. We've been talking about trying to incorporate some public education as part of this conversation, and also having time to have real dialogue. And so we've been spending a lot of time trying to, I don't know, explore what that means to everybody and what that could look like in the community. We were hoping to put something on this fall. I think we've missed that window. So hopefully early in the next year, after getting through the conversation on policing, the other two topics that are on the frontish burners are housing and the schools in some way. Is there anything else, Tina, that you think, or Katie, I know you've been trapped in those meetings as well. I think that it's really been a challenge to try to figure out how to make this look. So that's what I'll say about that. I'm excited to hear that at the summit, that the public safety, reimagining public safety topic is going to have its chance to debut, because I know that was something that a lot of folks were pushing for a while. So that's great that that's going to happen.
Okay, great. Anybody have any questions on that? Oh yes, Cynthia.
Yeah, I remember seeing at the Harvest Fair, these postcards about community conversations, and it had a list of groups, including Human Rights Committee. I thought that sounds great, but I wasn't really sure. I guess it's through Nuwari, and you're our person on Nuwari, so how we are involved with this.
I am trying to remember where it came from. I think that the recommendations came from Nuwari to have these community conversations. There are members of NDI on the committee. Who else is on there? Joanne. Yes, Joanne. I'm totally drawing a blank on her last name right now. From
Ellen Willoughby.
Yes, I was like Willoughby, but that didn't sound right. Yes, she is on the committee. Marianne Cooley is on the committee.
Marcus.
Yeah, Kate. So Kate and Ramin from NDI. I think that the postcards came out as a way to try to let people know that we were working on trying to come up with these conversations. That's kind of where the committee landed. We wanted to have something visible out there so that that people could know that it was being developed. Or it's not there yet, unfortunately. But I believe that those cards had like a QR link on it that somebody could.
It's just for them to sign up to get emails once we have more details to share.
What's that? What did you say, Katie?
The QR code went to a sign up page so people could just add their name to a list once we have more details to share out.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Okay, quick reports. Katie and I are attending the Citizens Police Academy. So we just finished week 2. It's actually very interesting just to hear about procedure, policy. We got a really great overview of the department the first night. So we'll continue with different topics along the way. This goes for another 4 weeks. I think it's 6 weeks in total, right? And, you know, aside from just general interest in it, I think it's important for us to be to understand what's happening with the department because a lot of our work is going to, particularly with the discrimination complaint process and other things that, the community conversation on race, our first topic is policing. So I think personally, it's important that we really have an understanding of what's going on Belinda's side, their side. And I'm learning a lot of things that I just did not know. I have some sort of preconceived notions about policing in general, and some of those things have been completely obliterated. So it's great. I think the Needham channel is recording the programming, so that is available. But if you get a chance to just kind of check it out, or if you have questions about it, please let me know. Marlene?
I'm just curious how many people are doing it.
Let's see, there are about a dozen of us, I think. I know a couple people were missing yesterday. So
That's
10,
great.
12 people in general, and it's a cross section of people. So for example, there's one gentleman, Chief Schiller went around the room and asked, why are you guys here? There's one gentleman that he got his degree in criminal justice. Due to health issues, he was never able to land a job in policing. This is something that's of interest to him. There's another gentleman, he moved to Needham a couple of years ago, he and his husband. He has very strong sort of ideas of what policing is. And instead of being angry, he wants to be educated. So it's a whole range of people there are a couple of other people who they just want to know what's happening in town because they love Needham. So it's a whole range of people, why people have decided to join. And it's been truly eye-opening, definitely for me.
Yeah, I mean, it looked really interesting. It was just, I couldn't make every meeting, so I couldn't sign up. But I'm glad to know it's on the Needham channel so I can look at it. Thank you.
Cynthia, do you have Needham Harvest Fair recap? Were you there all afternoon?
Carrie was there.
Right, sorry, I don't know why I have Cynthia down. How did it
That's
go with
I was there, but not long, so.
There was a lot of us at a table, quite honestly, like there was a whole bunch of us there. So I do feel like it was tough when I had put out I took a book out of Jen's page and to put a giant bowl of candy at the table to entice people to stop, and they did. But when they stopped, there was a whole bunch of us trying to like hand them information kind of thing. So it was tough, but I think it was also really nice to have like a group of people there that, we had Needham Steps Up. There was a whole bunch of really great organizations who shared our table. And I think it was pretty well attended. I mean, we lucked out with the weather. There was talk of rain. I saw Katie there. I saw Marlene there. I saw, it also, I have to say, given the past couple of years, like how things have gone, it felt so nice to be like seeing people in person. And that part was so great. I felt like it was the first time in such a long time that we had that. So that part was good. So, we handed out flyers. There were lawn signs being, given out to anyone who asked, and every organization who was at our table, was handing out flyers, and they shared, actually, whoever signed up to be on like the email list, it was all combined and they shared it with us. So I have that.
Oh, that's
too,
great.
Which I will put together and give to you.
Do you feel like that's a good forum for us, thinking about future events to do again?
Well, I think it's definitely a place we should be, because there's certainly a lot of people who don't, we've talked about this before, like they don't even know we exist.
Right.
So it's definitely nice to kind of have people, what's the Needham Human Rights Committee? And, and we can sort of give them the 30-second elevator pitch. And, you have some people who are like, I didn't even know that we had that in town and that kind of stuff. So I do think it's helpful. I don't think that's going to get a lot of people involved in us, but I certainly think it's helpful to be out there and to have a presence in those events for sure. I think when we share events on social media
Mhm.
and the flyers that go around town physically, I think that gets more attention than something like that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for being there for that.
Yeah, no,
Um,
it was, like I said, it was really nice to see people in person.
Does anybody else who attended have any other feedback or anything they want to add?
The only thing that I would like to add is with that list, can we just add those to our friends list? You know, the friends list, Tina, I don't even know if you know we have this.
Yeah.
Okay, so
We talked about it.
the friends list, so we send that, you know, certain things out to those people. So it's a much bigger list than just this. So
Yeah, basically puts them on our listserv. Yes.
yeah.
That was my thought, was what we would do with it.
To put them on the friends list, yeah. But I thought it was great to bring all the groups together, and Amelia is the one who coordinated the whole thing, even though she couldn't be there. So kudos to her for putting all of the voices in unity together at one table, all like-minded people. I think it was, to me, it was so nice to see, wow, look at all these people who care about the same things that we care about.
Yeah. That's great. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Carrie. I want to get through this administrative stuff because otherwise I don't know when we'll do it. The schedule. Yeah, Cynthia.
I had asked you if I could at least have a short time on, I guess it's under announcements, that we have in the past been co-sponsors of the
That's right.
Transgender Day of Remembrance. And
Yeah.
just a couple days ago, Reverend Katie Scudero, who's organized it the last couple of years, has started getting it organized, and it will be pre-recorded virtual the way it was last year, which is too bad because that it's not possible to be in person, because that was one of the most powerful parts of it, to have people from our community feel supported by everyone and to learn from one another. So just to remind people that we're one of the sponsors, and that there will be individual congregations of houses of worship. It's not sponsored by the Interfaith Clergy Association, because there are only certain congregations who that's part of what they want to do. And also in the past, in addition to the Human Rights Committee, the Diversity Initiative, and then last year, Equal Justice Needham, Progressive Needham, and out Metro West, sometimes there've been some other groups from the LGBTQ plus community. The service was recorded and it was available on YouTube. And I think quite a few people watched it. We actually may have had more people who watched it than had ever been there in person. So that part is good. And I can send you for the committee and then for the Friends group, the publicity as it comes up. And if anybody in the Human Rights Committee would like to have a role in the vigil, I'm usually there as one of my Quaker background, so that there certainly would be room if somebody from this group would like to be involved in either reading a prayer or a poem or making a statement, or we divided up reading the names, sadly, of the people who in the last year have died due to violence or crime against them, for just who they are in terms of their gender identity.
When is the event?
Oh, I'm sorry, November 20th. So usually that's when they start making the recording available, and then people can see it after
Okay.
that. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions about that? You can reach out to Cynthia directly, right?
Right.
Okay.
Thanks, Tina.
Thank you. The schedule, is everybody cool with the schedule? Amelia, you mentioned that February is school break. So we need to change that one. Were there any other issues that anybody noticed?
I actually think there's not a conflict in February, but let me pull it up while you guys are mulling it over.
It might have been April.
I checked the
April.
school.
I think I think that is right.
And they have listed, you might check again, but they have listed it as a break.
Okay, while Katie's looking that up. I wanted, oh yeah,
Sorry. So February vacation is the 21st to the 25th. So this group meets on the 17th. So I don't think that's a problem. But there is a conflict for the April break. So I think the group, if you want to decide which date to move it to not be on the 21st of April.
does anybody have a preference, the week before, or the week after? Cynthia?
The week after, 4/28. Just I have another meeting on the 14th.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
Okay, so can we move it to the 28th, please? Thank you. So we do have vacant seats. The reason why it's taking so long to push through this process is because in the past, there have been complaints that the town has rushed through the process to try to fill seats, and it has hindered developing a diverse pool of candidates. So I think that Marianne is going to try to start the interviews when, Katie?
November.
We have, I think, 2 folks vying for the seats that are left open via Marcus and Ashok, is that correct? And then we have 2 students currently that have applied.
Correct.
But the students are liaisons, so
Right.
they, they're not considered part of our 10.
No, they're appointed.
So they could start coming now. We don't have to wait. They can come now.
I thought they were appointed.
I mean, I guess it depends who's running the show at the select board if they are. Sometimes you found us all the students over the years, Cynthia, and I'm pretty sure that they just, agreed to be the liaison. Jen,
Well,
is that your recollection?
No, I remember Jared saying, I'm having my interview and I got appointed, and then the next meeting he was official.
Right, they
So-
go through the formal process like we all do, but originally, it's someone who pretty much throws up their hand and volunteers typically.
Did Matt do that? Do you remember, Jen?
I honestly can't remember, but I do remember Jared talking about his interview.
Yeah, Jared did, but I don't ever think Matt did, or Jeremy or Nathan. I don't think that's, so I don't know.
Maybe Katie would know.
Katie?
Yeah, I just pulled up the charge because that's what drives if somebody's appointed or not, is whatever the foundational charge of the committee is. And it says the committee shall consist of 12 members. When practicable, the committee shall include representatives or designees from the police department and school department as non-voting, along with the Commission on Disabilities and Needham Housing Authority. Membership, so I read that to be the appointed members, shall also include a representative of the local clergy, a senior citizen, a tenant of NHA, a realtor, and a Needham High School student.
So they are appointed.
Yeah. And I
According
think
to the
Tina
charge.
told us the 2 of them, their appointment ended June 30th. And at one point we were trying to figure out what a quorum constituted, whether the quorum was who was currently, how many seats were currently filled, or whether it was the quorum was based on the full number if they all were appoint, if you found people to fill those positions. And you said that they, even though they left town, their appointment went through June 30th, so that it had to be considered they were still members. The two of them.
Right. I do remember having that conversation. So we do have 2 students that have applied so far.
Have they
I've been,
have they come to any of the meetings?
mhm.
Oh, great, great.
And-
Adele,
I'm
I feel
sorry.
like, is it Emmy and Finn?
Yeah,
'Cause I think that they have run at least the last couple. They've been-
yeah. They even attended prior when Jared was, because it was Jared was the one, Jared recruited both of them. So they've been attending since last May, June, I think. But I'm in touch with them. I'm in touch with Renaz, just giving them a heads up about when things are happening so that they can stay in the loop, because I know this is a long process and people, as you said, Cynthia, times gets filled, people lose interest. So
Or they think we're not interested. That's the other part. So thanks for reaching out to them.
but I am hoping to have this wrapped up by the end of the year.
Oh, gee.
There are other people, have them. I've been trying to reach out to as many people as possible. So if there's anybody else that you can think of that might be appropriate, there's a little bit of time left to slide an application in.
Four spots right now to fill?
How do they formally apply?
There's an application on the website, but I also have the application I can send along.
This week's Needham News out of, is that Cindy's office, encourages people to think about becoming committee members. And they mentioned the Human Rights Committee, and there's a link of some sort to pursue it.
Yeah. It just takes you to an online form.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is moving along. It's moving along. Minute takers, we need. Please. So I don't know how we want to schedule that out. Should I just assign and you can tell me yes or no, it's okay? Do you guys want to get back to me with dates you want to take? How do you guys want to work this?
Do I just do it alphabetically or something?
I mean, rather than us, doing it that way, and then we might not be able to attend that meeting. I think I would prefer, now that we have the dates, that you send out the dates and you ask us just to respond to which date we would like to, Amelia's agreeing with me, which date works for us in terms of taking minutes.
Okay, so I'll send an email, give me a couple of options, obviously, because I'll have to shuffle people around potentially.
No, you
And
can
then-
send out an email and you would then reply to all. You put your name in next to the date. So then if I see that the November date is taken and Bud wanted it, he can't take that. He has to go to another one.
You can even do a Google form and then there's no emails going back and forth. It's just one sheet everyone fills out.
That's much easier.
Okay,
I'm happy to help you set that up, Tina, if you've never done a Google form.
I haven't, but yeah, that would be great, Carrie.
Okay.
Thank you. I will take care of the meeting minutes for tonight. I'll just go back and watch, listen. So it'll be from November on, but
I have to jump off. Our son's getting married Saturday night and I'm getting on a quick Zoom meeting with everyone.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Exciting.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Tina, I heard that Renaz said she'd be happy to help you with minutes.
Okay, I'll touch base with her. And then last but not least, with regards to administrative stuff, meeting format, we can do Zoom, fully in person, hybrid. What do you guys want to do? Amelia?
Where would we meet if it was in person?
In town hall, the Great Plain Room in the basement is hybrid equipped with an owl.
Where we used to meet.
We used to meet in the Highland Room,
Oh,
Just
It's
across the hall.
across the hall. It's a different room.
is it a bigger room, Katie?
It is.
So we would have some space between us,
Um,
12 people?
Yes, you wouldn't be touching, but I don't want to overstate it. You wouldn't have 4 feet between people.
But we would be wearing masks.
Masks are optional, but the group can decide if you want to require it.
Vaccination is optional too. Yeah, I wouldn't be comfortable meeting in person. I only go to in-person meetings where I know that everybody is masked and there's opportunity for distance and there's ventilation. And when it's more than like shopping for a few minutes, we're going to be in the same, breathing the same air for an hour and a half.
What if everybody's vaccinated, Cynthia?
I would feel more comfortable, but I don't think you can require that, so. In a public meeting.
We can do an informal poll, right?
No, but you have public, we have to.
Oh,
be-
you have public participation. Yeah, you're right. That's
Right. If we were to be in like the school committee meets and I don't know, I saw one of them at Broad Meadow School or in the large meeting space in the town hall. You know, if you were meeting in some area like that, I would feel more comfortable. Those little rooms, I don't know what the ventilation is like, but that's just me. I don't know how other people feel.
Well, we could move to a hybrid model. Or just stay on Zoom completely.
Are there other people who feel comfortable with meeting in person in that kind of space?
Yeah, I would.
I would meet in person too, but I'm fine with.
I would
Sorry,
too.
I just wanted to clarify, if you met only in person without a hybrid option, we could certainly book a bigger room. So I don't know if I didn't answer your first question accurately.
Oh, it's because that's where you're equipped with the owl for doing the hybrid.
Right.
Got
Does
it.
that have any ramifications for public participation though?
No,
They would just have-
when we run hybrid meetings, we make both in-person and Zoom available to the public as well. So they could choose how they participate.
Okay, but what I'm saying is if people don't feel comfortable coming in person, then they wouldn't come, right? If we just did it fully in person,
Correct.
they wouldn't be, right, okay, that they would basically self-restrict and they would not come to attend the meeting.
Correct.
Mhm.
Okay,
So we'd have to do hybrid, I would think. I would not be comfortable meeting if we weren't masked in person, but otherwise I'm fine meeting in person.
Amelia, Julie, Carrie,
I'm so eager to be in a room with all of you, but I prefer Zoom for the time being.
Hmm.
At least until the beginning of the year. Let's see what happens after.
Julie,
In the same way for the time being. Prefer virtual.
Carrie,
I'm honestly fine with either. I like being able to be in my sweatpants and being at home too. So I do work in a school and I'm there every day. So I'm honestly comfortable with either.
so it's kind of split down the middle, 6 of one, half a dozen the other. Should we hybrid, masks required?
I think we should meet on Zoom. It sounds,
Mhm.
I think more people will be comfortable.
I've been in some hybrid business meetings. They're really tough. It's hard. Either the people on Zoom are kind of like looking into the real participants who are in person, even with the owl. I mean, I don't know how big an owl screen how big a screen you have and the people who are there in person, and like who's that up there with, I don't know, maybe you've got it so it works out better, but
Hybrid
Okay.
is definitely tough. I've run meetings both. I think fully in person or fully remote is much easier than hybrid personally.
yeah,
I
exactly.
agree.
And I wish I felt comfortable doing that, but eventually our grandkids who we see, fortunately, who are too young now to be vaccinated, and the youngest is 4, won't be for a while. And being in the older group, which I hate to admit, but I have to be realistic about that.
Amelia?
I've attended a few NDI meetings. It was a disaster because we were experimenting with how to coordinate, but we wasted a lot of time. Perhaps, at town hall, we'll have someone like Katie has more expertise, but we did waste some time.
Okay, so we'll keep it at Zoom for now. And that's indefinite, right? We can do that indefinitely, Katie?
Right now, we can do it until April, and we'll just have to see what the legislature does between now and then.
Okay. And then there are a couple of announcements there. I put on the agenda the Needham Area Immigration Justice Task Force. This got cut off on my piece of paper. Can you just give a quick rundown on that, Cynthia, please?
I presume that what you had was related to or being involved with the IINE, International Institute.
That's
of
correct, the
Management,
Afghan refugee,
and
yes.
providing support for Afghan refugees. A lot of, they've already started coming, are going to be settled in the Lowell area. There are other agencies too, but that's one we've worked with for a long time. And I don't know what they were offering yet. It's all sort of in process, and they'll let people know how they can volunteer.
Okay. And then there is an event on the 16th, the Color of Law. It's
Oh, NDI.
yeah, a co-sponsored event between NDI and the Rotary Club. And again, my thing got cut off, so I don't know if there's any additional information available for that.
Is the author coming? Sam, I know.
What was your question, Jen?
Is the author of the book, The Color of Law, coming? I can look it up. I just was curious if you knew.
Yes, he's coming. I forgot to unmute. Richard.
Rothstein, I think.
Rothstein.
Yes, yeah. And he lives in Newton, I think. Yeah, it's awesome. It's really, he's fabulous.
He is fabulous.
He is great. I've heard him.
Okay. Does anybody else have any other comments, questions, concerns, declarations?
Thank you, Tina.
Can I have a motion
Move to
to
adjourn. Move to
Yes.
adjourn.
Can I have a second, please?
Second,
Okay, great. Cynthia,
yes.
Jen,
Yes.
Carrie,
Yes.
Amelia,
Yes.
Belinda,
Yes.
Bud's gone, Marlene,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
Katie.
Yes.
Thank you guys for running over. I know it was long, but we just had to get through some of the stuff after a kind of a sleepy summer. So I will be in touch with my stuff, and we will talk soon.
Thank you.
Bye,
Good night.
thanks.
Bye.
Good night,
Thank
everyone.
you, Tina, for
Bye.
persisting and persevering and doing a great job.
See you later.
Thank you, Katie, for being our person.